Musicians Institute. Hey, I'm Ryan J. Downey, and I'd like to welcome you all to our MI Conversation series. I'd like to say thanks to our friends at Ultimate Classic Rock and Loudwire for putting on this event with us. You guys stoked? I'm going to keep it short and sweet because this is the kind of rock and roll icon that needs no introduction. I'm going to give him one that's about this long. The Spaceman, Ace Frehley!
What happened? I made it.
Ace is back, and I told you so. Let's start right there. Sir, how are you?
I'm great. I flew in. No, I didn't fly in. I was driven up Sunday evening, and then yesterday I did Kimmel.
Yes.
And here I am now.
You sat in with Kimmel's band, right?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. They were great.
Yeah, and you've done that before on some of the late night shows, right? Where you go in with the band and kind of play.
I did Jimmy Fallon in New York
with the Roots,
and did New York Groove and stuff.
Yeah, very
cool. A lot of fun doing stuff
very
like
cool.
that.
Very cool. So, first things first, let's talk about the new record. Ace has a new record. You guys know that, right? Ace did tell me backstage that nothing is off limits, so, and we're going to chat for a while, and you guys are going to have an opportunity. I don't think that counts for all of you, but, give it your best shot. Record, tell us about this new record.
Please go out and buy it because it's one of the best records I ever recorded. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from everybody who's heard it. I've done about 50 interviews, and all the interviewees just said, Ace, this is one of the best things you've ever done.
Absolutely. I would say that I second that, but I guess I 50-second to that. Yeah. From all the other 51 people.
I wanted to call the album 40 Years Later. Because the first solo album I did with New York Groove was 1978. And I was doing a vault experience in Miami with Gene. And we were doing a Q&A like this, with a little less people. And I polled the audience and I said, what should I call the next album, 40 Years Later? And I got a lukewarm response. And then Gene, I'm going to imitate Gene right now.
Please.
Ace, you should call the album Spaceman. I said, okay. Coming from you, great. I don't want Tommy Thayer knocking on my door going, I'm a spaceman. I don't think so. I do not think so.
When you asked me what that noise was a minute ago, I was going to say I think it's Tommy Thayer, but you went there, so we're there.
By the way, I have nothing against Tommy. I'm friends with Tommy. I used to be our road manager. Believe it or not, I don't know if everybody knows that, but
If you've read Ace's book, you may know that. There's one story in particular in there about you and Tommy on the road that we probably don't have to get into.
Is that when I punched him?
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Well, that's really out of character for me. What happened was we had an ongoing rule on tour that there's no women allowed in the dressing room. But of course, when Shannon and Paul's wife came on tour, they just pranced.
And let me get this straight. Kiss, no women in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because when we're getting ready, we don't want anybody in. We don't even want guys in there. The only women that are allowed in the dressing room are the women that dress us, which isn't too bad. We had women dressing us and stuff. They'd be, during the day they're running around and washing our costumes and ironing them and making sure everything's. Gene's costume had to constantly be fixed, because they had all that floppy stuff that would break, and they had glue guns and stuff, But they're doing that all day, and then when prior to the show, we're putting on our makeup, and then the girls dress us. But, we had a standing rule that no girlfriends or anything are allowed in the dressing room. I had a girlfriend with me, a model from Canada, and of course, she always had to wait outside. Anyway, when Shannon and Paul's wife came on tour. They just pranced into the dressing room. I let it go. I didn't make a big deal out of it. But now, this is the last day of the tour in Australia. Everybody has left the dressing room. Paul, Gene, and Peter. Was Peter there? Yeah. They all, or was it Eric? It's not important to the story anyway. They had all split. So my girlfriend Sharon was standing outside, and I said, "Hey, honey, come on in. Nobody's here." So 5 minutes later, Tommy Thayer comes walking in and goes, "Ace, you know the rule, no women in the dressing room." I go, "There's nobody here. It's the end of the tour." And he like started, being authoritative with me. So I gave him a shot. That's pretty much the story. I got aggravated. I guess the Bronx boy in me kind of came out.
That's a perfect segue to talk about the Bronx boy in you, because I want to go way, way back.
You like the way I did that segue to the top?
Pre-Kiss. As I understand it, your teenage years were not unlike the movie The Warriors, right? Like that was essentially, the old gangs of New York. What can you tell me about that and how music sort of took you out of that and put you on this different path?
Yeah, I got involved with a gang because I got tired of getting beat up. When you're in a gang, you have protection. You're walking down the street and somebody wants to pick a fight with you, and his buddy will go, "Don't pick a fight with him. He's in the Ducky Boys." And what movie was the Ducky Boys were in that movie, The Warriors?
The Warriors, yeah.
Is that the name of the
Yeah.
film? Whatever. But that's pretty much why I got involved with the gang scene, even though it wasn't something that I really was excited about or really wanted to do. I just wanted protection. But I was telling another interviewee just this afternoon, what happened was, as I got older, I joined the gang when I was about 13, and that's around the time I picked up a guitar. So by the time I was 14, I was already in bands and performing on weekends at like church dances and so on and so forth, wherever we could play. So by the time I was like 15, I was really into it and working almost every weekend. And I'd be getting calls from the guys in the gang going, "Hey, we got a fight tonight in a schoolyard, bring your switchblade." And I'd say, "I can't go, I got a gig." So pretty much music kind of got me out of that whole gang scene. It saved my life.
Yeah, amen to that. So what were some of the songs that first really connected with you, as a kid, like, music you heard around the house, or, what inspired you even before age 13 playing a guitar?
The Beatles and the Stones. When I was 13, I remember getting the single of "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and they all had those matching suits, with no collars, and of course, and the Rolling Stones, huge fan of the Rolling Stones. Actually, more so than the Beatles, because, I'm attracted to bad boys, because I grew up that way.
Yeah, one might say you're the Keith Richards of Kiss.
I played ping pong with Keith Richards at Shea Stadium before they went on to do their concert. True story. I know it sounds bizarre.
I should just think of legends and say their names and see if you have a story that involves the two of you. I think the Beatles and Stones, as much as it's a foregone conclusion for a lot of people who are into rock music, I think people like myself and probably a lot of people in this room that grew up on bands like Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne, so many of those artists were so inspired. Guns N' Roses, obviously, they were kind of like the modern Stones for a minute. So many of those artists were so inspired by those two bands. Those two bands were so quintessential. What would you say to a Kiss fan who maybe thinks the Beatles and Stones aren't for them? What should they go back and listen to?
What would I say to a Kiss fan about what?
A Kiss fan who thinks maybe the Beatles and Stones aren't for them.
Well, maybe they're not. I don't know. I don't like to tell. I don't like to be a dictator and tell people what to listen to and what not to. What I would say to up and coming guitar players and bands You know, I would say, you know, listen to Led Zeppelin, listen to the Cream, you know, listen to Jeff Beck, listen to The Who. I mean, those are the guys that influenced me, and pretty much I got my guitar style by copying their solos and their songwriting, and because I never took a guitar lesson, and just about every day somebody comes up to me and says, you know, if it wasn't for you, I never would have picked up a guitar. You know, and I feel guilty because I never took a guitar lesson. Like, you're idolizing an idiot. Because, you know, I don't even know what I'm playing half the time. You know, I can't verbalize it. It just comes out of the speakers.
Yeah. Is it true, last Beatles question, I swear, is it true that Kiss was offered a part in Sgt. Pepper's and you guys turned it down? Or is that just Kiss
I
lore?
vaguely remember that happening.
It was around that time when it was like, you got to get into the movies.
Well, you got to remember in those days, kind of me and Peter were a little loaded. So, you know, things kind of flew over our heads. And,
I believe I've read that once or twice.
Paul and Gene were kind of taking care of business a lot more than me and Peter. You know, on touring and stuff, you know, we were pretty much party animals, you know. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I did it, believe me. But I'm still here, and I'm sober 12 years. God bless.
And that's a perfect segue. Also, Paul has said that Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park was pitched to the band as Hard Day's Night meets Star Wars. And clearly, that's not exactly what happened. You were, you know, you mentioned kind of the state that you and Peter were in lifestyle-wise at that time. What's your recollection of that movie and sort of the...
I remember very well. I had a lot of fun. You know, when we started shooting at Magic Mountain, they closed the park at 6 o'clock, so I had the run of the park. So I bought a moped and used to drive around all those asphalt trails and between the rides, and I crashed a few times, but luckily I had that costume on with all the padding, and I didn't get hurt. But I mean, the whole experience for me was pretty good. There was one day that I really kind of lost it, and that was when I had a fight with a producer. What happened was I was partying the night before. We had to get up at 7 o'clock, drive to Magic Mountain. You know, we were staying at a hotel on Burton Way, and then we had to put makeup on and costumes and stuff. You know, and I had the script, you know, the day's shooting schedule. And, you know, I was supposed to start shooting at around 10:30, 11 o'clock. So, you know, I said, okay, well, I got to do it. So all of a sudden, somebody knocks on the door and they says, excuse me, Mr. Frehley, we're going to be doing close-ups on Gene Simmons all morning, and we won't need you until after lunch. And, you know, that happened more than once, but the second time it happened, I just lost I said, forget it. So I ran into the producer's office. I says, this shit's not going to fly with me. You know, you get your shit together. If you want me here at 9 o'clock in makeup, you know, you better make sure you got your shooting schedule right. Because nobody wants to sit around in that makeup and costume for 12 hours, you know? Anyway, so I kind of lost it. I jumped into my Mercedes and took off. My bodyguard followed me, and I like to drive fast, you know that.
I've also heard that about you, yeah.
Anyway, I did a quick zigzag, boom, 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 went through a red light, and I lost him in 2 minutes.
And I understand several scenes around that time were shot without you, right? Like there's someone who isn't you that's in your makeup in that movie.
Only in the scene of, you know, the Chamber of
yeah.
Horrors. My stuntman was black, so if you look at the film closely and freeze the frame when they're fighting Frankenstein, you could pretty much tell he's a black man.
It's pretty clear it's not you.
But he was the best stuntman of the four. I mean, he was the one that did those gymnastic flips when we were fighting those, what do you call those things?
Well, there were the evil versions of you guys. And
the
robot werewolves.
They were like werewolves with white fur. Yeah. That was interesting.
You know, the movie's pretty incomprehensible now as an adult, but for me, it was one of my earliest exposures to Kiss was seeing that on TV.
I mean, Paul and Gene have gone on record that they hate the film. I think it's hysterical. You know, and I think it's campy, and I think it's a silly rock and roll movie, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, I mean, they took the film so goddamn seriously that it just ruined it for them when they saw the final cut, because they expected, you know, Gone with the Wind, and look what we got.
Yeah. They wanted Gone with the Wind from the producers from Hanna-Barbera for
Whatever.
TV. Yeah.
I'm just talking off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Pay no attention to me.
Fun times. This is why we're here. And this also is a nice kind of transition into around somewhere in that, you know, period. We don't have to do dates. But the Kiss solo albums were, you know, of that era. Your record.
40 years ago.
And I think, without disparaging any of the other guys, as a Kiss fan and as a fan of all four of you, and the Fox, rest in peace, yours is clearly the best of the solo records.
Thank you.
And that's not a slight on those guys, and that's not because you're here in front of me. I'd say the same thing to them. Where were you at, sort of creatively, and what were some of the things that you were looking to accomplish with that record at that time that you weren't able to do in Kiss?
Well, I just wanted to make the best record possible. And, you know, I had a revelation after the album came out, all four albums came out, and mine became the most successful. Pretty much, you know, there's this voice in my head going, you know, Ace, you're a lot more creative away from those guys than you are with them. So that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, because I realized that, you know, I could make a lot better music away from Paul and Gene and Peter than I could with them, you know?
Yeah, and that was also...
But, you know, I was also drinking and doing a lot of drugs, so that could have affected my decision-making.
I would also love to talk about, that was kind of the beginning of your relationship with Anton Fig, who a lot of us grew up with as
He was a great lover.
He was the drummer for the David Letterman band for all those years with Paul Schaefer and all that, but you were, I mean, really, he was Ace's drummer.
When I met Anton, he was like this green. He was very green. He hadn't played with a lot of famous people. You know, he went to school in Boston. He's from South Africa, by the way, Cape Town. And a friend of mine, Larry Russell, said to me, I know this guy Anton Fig, because I was looking for a drummer for the record. And he told me about Anton. He said, this guy's great. And then about 3 days later, Eddie Kramer called me, my producer, and he said, there's this guy I heard about called Anton Fig, and I want you to audition him. You know, so when you get that from two different people you know and trust, I called them up and said, let's get together and jam. And it was just like magic. And it's been magic. Every time I've worked with Anton, you know, we have like this telepathy. You know, I don't even have to tell him what to do. I'll just look at him, and he does the drum fill. It's so weird. He just kind of knows you know, we just work so well that we're like connected mentally.
And he was, for a minute, in Kiss. Is that right?
Yeah, you want to hear the story? This is a story. So Paul and Gene came to me and they said, we're going to fire Peter. I said, well, you know, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I have no control. I'm outvoted anyway, 2-1. And they said, we need to get a drummer. And first thing out of my mouth was, well, what about Anton Fig? You know, and they'll look at me and I go, listen to my solo album. He's an amazing drummer. So they said to me, yeah, why don't you give him a call? So I called Anton Fig that evening and I said, hi, Anton, I got some good news. You're in Kiss. The next day, Paul and Gene changed their mind. But for one day, Anton was the drummer of Kiss.
So somebody's updating the Wikipedia page right now, putting him in as an ex-member for a day.
Yeah. I really felt bad calling him back and telling him, Paul and Gene decided that. Yeah. And I think it was because me and Anton were really good friends, and we liked to party together, and they probably thought maybe, you It wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, they were trying to break up the other team, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't want to give you a new teammate.
Yeah, I mean, me and Peter used to party together,
Right.
you know, but we still did our job. You know, I still did the shows. I was 99% on.
That's why I'm saying you're the Keith Richards of Kiss.
I mean, I've
you can
heard
still pull it off.
I had a tour manager who told me he used to work with the Stones, and he said Keith Richards was so stoned they had to carry him on stage and put him in a chair. But the minute they put the guitar in his hand, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was never that loaded where I couldn't walk on stage. But, you know, I always performed, and I always came through, you know.
I think one thing for Kiss fans, I know for myself especially, and for all my friends who grew up with Kiss, it's a lot like sports in the sense that everybody has their favorite era, and there's, you know, like a different team or different, you know, different style, different sound. And one era in particular that I really liked was that lineup when Eric Carr came in the band. And, you know, the I Love It Loud video was like a life-changing moment for me as a kid.
Eric Carr was a sweetheart of a guy and a very good drummer. And I became good friends with him. You know, we even, you know, used to have a couple of beers together. You know, nothing crazy, because he was too afraid to get fired by Paul and Gene, you know. But, you know, pretty much Paul and Gene treated him like, you know, he was an employee. And I used to take him on the side and said, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay, buddy. You know, because I was always, you know, like the guy, whenever there was an argument or dissension in the band, I would always try to, you know, heal it, you know. Yeah. And probably because I'm a Taurus and I don't like confrontation usually. But don't fuck with me.
Mess with the bull, you get the horns, right? So let's talk about that period then, you know, sort of post Creatures of the Night and really launching into your solo career and making that whole transition.
Post Creatures of the Night. What happened to the Elder?
You tell us.
Well, I want to give you my 2 cents about
Please.
the Elder. You know, Bob Ezrin flew into Connecticut. You know, a lot of it was recorded at my home studio.
Yeah, you had the studio in Connecticut.
In Connecticut,
and then some
it
was
a professional
Canada, right?
studio. I spent about $1 million on it, and but you know, during the recording process, I kept telling all those guys, Bob, you know, Peter wasn't there. It was Eric, Paul, and Gene. I go, this is the wrong album for this period of time. I think the fans want to hear a heavy hard rock album. And they just kept, you know, they just had a deaf ear to me. I keep just saying, you know, write a couple of songs, Ace, and do them, and, you know, we'll worry about it. And I said, it's not going to work. And, of course, the album bombed. So yeah, I guess I had a handle on what was happening there.
Indeed. I've seen interviews with Paul where he, after the fact, obviously, where he said he and Gene didn't realize what was happening until other people heard it. And then it was like, you know, people at the record label were some of the first to hear
what
it.
Does
and that's
that
when
mean?
They kind of, you know, but they were convinced that it was something that it ultimately wasn't.
See, they didn't have, those guys never had any street sense. And it's not that, it's no fault of their own. You know, Gene grew up in Israel. And Paul grew up in Queens, but he wasn't a guy like me who hung out on the corner candy store and got into fights and, you know, did crazy stuff. So, you know, I always had my pulse on what was going on. And I knew at the time, I mean, I would have bet $1 million that album was going to fail. I didn't want it to fail. And actually, if you take that album out of sequence with the Kiss records, it's not a bad record.
Exactly.
You know, I did some great solos on it, and there's some really good songs, but it wasn't the right record for the time. And then somebody asked me, I was doing an interview with Billboard magazine, and they said, Ace, what would have happened if The Elder never happened, and you went from your last album prior to The Elder to Creatures of the Night? You know, and I thought for a second, because I like Creatures of the Night. It's heavy, it's powerful, it's everything I said we should have been doing when we were recording The Elder. So, yeah, I may not have quit the band.
Wow.
But, you can't rewrite history unless we go into a time warp or a black hole. Or, you hear all that crazy stuff about alternate universes?
Yeah, simulations. And
Did you hear that the world ended in 2012? Something happened at CERN, the particle accelerator, and the world, ended.
And what are we in
for
now?
like a tenth of a second, and we didn't realize it, and now we're living in a matrix. But it's okay as long as you're having fun. It really doesn't matter, right?
And that would explain for all of us why we're hanging out with Ace. We're in a dream.
Really? I was just talking to John 5 backstage about it, and he goes, I don't care where I am as long as I'm having fun,
Doesn't
so
matter what
maybe we
dimension.
did die. Maybe we came back to life. Who cares? My career's going like this, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's possible that you died in the DeLorean, and we're all just in your dream ever since.
Anything's possible, I could be a clone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we all know who the clone is right now.
What
saying.
happened? And don't go into that MK shit. That MK mind control. Have you seen any of those videos on YouTube where people are just frozen for 10, 15 seconds?
I've been down those rabbit holes.
It's pretty bizarre. But I don't like getting into politics or cults or any of that crap.
Well, let's get out of Kiss and get into solo. I want to talk about the Comet. Let's talk about
Frehley's
those
Comet?
years. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an experiment. It wasn't bad. Some of those records, there's some good songs. But you know what happened? When I started touring with Frehley's Comet, invariably on the marquee, the promoter would put Ace Frehley's Comet. And I wanted to keep it a band, but in reality, I just missed the fact of being in a band. With Kiss for so many years, we were all equal partners. But I realized I couldn't, the guys in the band weren't really as famous as me, and it was never to be. So pretty much I ended up changing it to the Ace Frehley Band, and some people left, and I got some new people, and life goes on.
Yeah, and here we are. I got to say, another big moment, I think probably for everyone in this room that's old enough to remember anyway, was Halloween 1995, the MTV Unplugged, when you and Peter got up and played with the guys for the first time that we were all able to see that. What was kind of the feeling in the air at that time? I mean, because it seemed like it was imminent that you guys would return to the band. What was that sort of period like in between being estranged for so long?
It was a little strange. I think Paul and Gene had just finished a tour of conventions. Am I right? Yeah. And they had, you'd walk into a room and there'd be mannequins with all our old costumes and stuff. And then, the Unplugged thing happened, and I think they were testing the waters. And they actually had recorded an album with Bruce that was due to be released that they scrapped once, Unplugged went over so big. And then the next thing you know, I'm sitting in an office negotiating a reunion tour. And the rest is history. I use that all the time, but, it just saves me a lot of words.
I love it. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, since we have you here, and I should probably see what time it is. So we're going to open it up to questions here in a minute. It feels like that moment again has come around with, first Paul being in your video and playing on the Covers record with you, and then obviously the stuff with Gene, and you guys were just in Australia together. I watched some fan Q&As from there, and that was a lot of fun. Just seeing the chemistry of you and Gene hanging out, and two guys who have experienced
I just
so
got
much
back
together.
from Australia with them.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're not going to make a big announcement here or anything, but it feels like, something's going to happen.
Something's leading to something, yeah.
I mean, I think we all really hope something
Everybody tells me that, but I haven't been asked. Honestly. you know. And I had a meeting with those guys several months ago, and they talked about retiring to me, and that didn't seem right either. So who knows what's going to happen? You know, I read comments on the internet, and I fall off my bed laughing because, I mean, there's all these people that have all these different ideas of a configuration of what the next Kiss tour should be, and it's crazy. But overwhelmingly, they want me back in the band, I think. Oh, I don't know. At least that's what I'm reading on the internet. I don't know. And you know, I'm doing fine on my own. My career is on an upswing. I'm having a ton of fun. I like producing my own records. I don't like anybody standing over my shoulder telling me what to do. I've had a lot of freedom. And, you know, working with Paul and Gene again, you know, it would be different. But then again, I'd probably make $5 or $10 million, so
I mean,
I might consider that.
I'll put it this way. You know, I got to see Guns N' Roses with Slash and Duff a couple of times on this run, and Slash is now putting out his own record and going back out with Miles Kennedy and all that. So there's nothing stopping you from still doing what you're doing now.
I remember the first time I wanted to quit the band. You know, Gene called me up. He goes, "Ace, you don't have to leave the band if you want to do a solo record. You can still stay in Kiss. We'll even take a break and let you do it." You know, they didn't want me to leave. They never wanted me to leave. And I quit the band twice. Sometimes, you know, if you look at old interviews, sometimes they would lump me in with Peter and saying, "Yeah, we fired Peter and Ace." No, they never fired me. I always quit, you know.
And you were always
I want to make that clear, but I think most of the people know that, right?
And you were always the most fun on talk shows. I will say that. In that era. I can't tell you how many times I've texted someone a gif of you laughing on a talk show.
Yeah, did you see that one interview? It was just me laughing
Yes.
for like 5 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been, you know, I mean, Kiss in the 70s was just like this roller coaster ride for me. I was holding on for dear life, you know. I mean, we were just constantly busy.
Yeah.
And, you know, the drugs and the alcohol and all the partying in conjunction with that type of schedule just started to get to me, you know, and by the early 80s, I just wanted to jump off the roller coaster, you know, because I thought I was going to crash. I used to tell my lawyer said, I was sitting in my lawyer's office prior to quitting the band, and we had just gotten a $15 million contract. You know how much money that is back then? Would be today. So I'm talking to my lawyer. I'm going, yeah, but $15 million, that's great. But every night I drive home to Connecticut and I want to drive my car into a tree. You know, because I'm not happy. And he goes, okay, Ace, I hear that, but it's $15 million. After about a half an hour, I said, look, Paul, you cannot spend money 6 feet under, you know? And he still didn't get it. He still didn't get it. And unfortunately, when I left, they lost $7.5 million, which I feel bad about, because the contract stated at least 3 of the 4 members had to be in the band, and they had let Peter go. So when I decided to quit, they cut the contract in half, you know, went from 15 million to 7.5, you know. So I think they were a little mad at me about that.
Well, I don't want to get in the weeds on this too much, but
I'm still alive, you know. I think, you know, you got to put that ahead of everything. You know, people who have this thing about money is everything. It's not. I remember when I was at the richest point in my life, I was the most miserable. And I'm sure other people have heard that, you know, other people have said that, you know, well, you know, I've met a lot of wealthy people who are miserable, you know. It's, well, it depends on how you make your money, you know. There's a lot of wealthy people who are crooked, and they're probably unhappy with themselves and have trouble sleeping at night because it's all on their conscience, you know.
Yeah.
But
What's
that wasn't my problem. My problem was I was just, you know, doing too much, way too much. I mean, I was with John Belushi 2 weeks before he passed away. You know, we were partying together. We used to go on 3-day coke runs, and I mean, we had fun. Yeah, I'm not promoting drugs because, you know, they can kill you real quick. I was just lucky. But, you know, John, I was one of the few people that could make John Belushi crack up. And he told me that, you know, and I was very flattered. And before he left to go to California to finish up the movie that he was working on, he said to me, Ace, you're going to be in my next film. You have to be. And then we all know what happened at the Chateau Marmont.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to say, not far from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. Tragic. Tragic. But I'll tell you something. I never knew John to use needles. So, you know, the fact that that girl shot him up with a hot dose of ups and downs, you know, John never did that. So, leave it to your imagination. I'm not accusing anybody of everything. I'm just saying I never knew John to stick a needle in his arm.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with him.
Well, and like you said, you've been sober for quite a while now. And we're all very happy to still have you here and to even be talking about a new Ace record and potentially seeing you play some shows with maybe some old friends. We're all
What is he
glad you're
talking
here.
about? What are you saying?
I'm going to ask you just one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it to you guys. And only because you said nothing's off limits. There seems to be a difference of opinion about your makeup. Because I've seen interviews where you've said that you own it and you've only licensed it to those guys. And then I've seen interviews where those guys have said, no, Ace is confused. We own it.
My attorney told me that I've licensed the makeup to Kiss. That's what my attorney is a big attorney in LA. You want me to mention his name? You'll probably recognize Peter Paterno.
Yeah. That is a big
Okay?
Yes.
He said, from what he has ascertained through the documents, he says, you've licensed the makeup to Kiss. You didn't sell it.
I mean, it's your makeup.
They can say whatever they want. I'm just I'm not saying it from me. I'm just repeating what my attorney told me.
Yeah, and I don't want to stir anything up because everything's all good Kiss vibes right now.
Look,
everyone's getting along,
right now,
doing stuff together.
Right now, we're all getting along. I don't want to start a lawsuit. You know, hopefully, you know, next year, what all the Kiss fans really want to happen will happen. You know, I'm hoping. I want to be involved, especially for the fans. You know, it's not like my dream job because I've done it a couple of times and quit. But I really want to do it for the fans if it's going to happen.
Name's Brett Feldman. Just graduated from MI here last weekend. And I have a question of your song, Into the Night. What had made you inspired to come up with that song?
Did I write that song?
Yes. Yes, you did, sir.
Okay.
He's holding it.
Wait, what was the song that I recorded that Kiss also recorded? Hide Your Heart, okay. I had a I just went to an alternate universe for 2 seconds. I'm back. Yeah. Into the Night, I don't know. You know, it's amazing to me when I meet people how they read into my lyrics all these deep meanings. And I'll write lyrics in a half an hour for a song. You know, if the words rhyme, great. You know, if it makes some type of sense, great. But, you know, usually I write the music first and then just write lyrics that kind of make sense and go along with the theme. Sometimes, you know, like in the 80s and 90s, sometimes I used to write songs and it almost felt like an alien or somebody was beaming the lyrics into my head because I couldn't write them fast enough. So I'm getting help from somebody. Maybe it's the people from Jendel.
So
But lyrics have always been really easy for me to write. You know, like the lyrics in Spaceman. Most of them are written within an hour. You know, but there's no deep meaning behind it. Into the Night.
We're going to go over this way. Tell us your name and your question, please.
Hey, it's Russ also.
Hi.
Big fan for a long time.
Thank you.
Just simple question. Just wondering what some of your
Several.
what some of your favorite Kiss songs are.
Well, my favorite Kiss song is Deuce. And the reason why it's not only is it a great ass-kicking song, it was the first song that I heard. You know, when I auditioned for Kiss, Paul and Gene played Deuce for me. And they said, all right, now it's in the key of A, plug in and play a solo. And, you know, that's how I got the gig. So Deuce has like a special place in my heart. And I love playing it live, and I enjoyed playing it when I was in Kiss. It's a real kick-ass song, so that's probably my favorite Kiss song.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense
First
in
practice.
that. Hi.
Hello, my name is Ozzy Erickson, and my question to you is, what do you think some of the biggest mistakes that upcoming bands are doing today?
Well, like I said earlier, you know, listen to Led Zeppelin, listen to Cream. I mean, there's no band out there that I'm aware of that's playing and writing songs like that. Listen to Jimi Hendrix. Listen to that first album, because I used to carry it under my arm in high school. I used to bring it to... I never left that album alone. And I used to stare at the cover. You know, when you stare at covers, we've all done it. But I used to stare at the cover of the front, and I'd flip over the back, and it was black and white with the 3 afros backlit. And I just thought it was like beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And the songs were great. And... today, something's lacking in music, and I can't put my finger on it, and probably one of the reasons I can't is because I don't listen to a lot of current music.
Okay.
Thank you.
And practice. Practice is very important.
You mentioned Jimi Hendrix. You were there for a pretty important Hendrix gig. Am I right? A Jimi Hendrix gig? When you were...
I roadied for
you
him.
were roadieing, yeah.
Yeah, that was like such a bizarre day. I went, there was a peace concert in Randall's Island in 1970, and I went there. I hitchhiked to get there, and Hendrix was performing. You know, Mountain was playing. There was a bunch of big groups playing. And I snuck backstage, and... after about 15 minutes, people started saying, who is this guy? Because I was a nobody at the time. And they were going to kick me out. And then one guy says, hey, can you do anything? Because, you know, back in those days, there was no laminates. You know, everything was just kind of like thrown together. You know, everything wasn't as, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Organized?
Organized. Everything wasn't as organized as it was now than it was back then. Things would be thrown together, especially like a peace concert where probably a lot of the bands weren't making a lot of money performing. Anyway, so I got a chance to, so they said, well, look, we'll put you to work. I go, I can change guitar strings, I can set up amps, I can set up drums. So next thing you know, I'm setting up Mitch Mitchell's drums from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And I'm working with an English roadie, and at that point in time, Mitch Mitchell had changed his image dramatically. He went from the afro to growing a beard and having long hair and with a headband. Okay, does anybody remember that? Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I wasn't aware that he had changed his image. So when he walked over to help set up the drums, I didn't know it was Mitch Mitchell because I didn't recognize him until he said to the English roadie, hey, Mitch, the English roadie said to Mitch, he goes, Mitch, what snare are you going to use tonight? And then all of a sudden, here I am, like a 19-year-old punk from the Bronx, and I'm setting up Mitch Mitchell's drums with Mitch Mitchell. And, you know, I was in high school, I was carrying the album around with me every day. It was just like, the whole thing was so surreal. I still question that it happened, but I know it happened. Believe me, I know it happened. And, you know, that's been my life story, like bizarre things happening. And, you know, I think it was just kind of all meant to be. You know, I've always been a fatalist and believed in fate. You know, when I was 16 years old, I was convinced I was going to be a rock star. Nobody could change my mind. And then somebody said to me in an interview when I told them, says, well, what would have happened if Kiss failed? I said, I would have been famous with another band. You know, nothing was going to stop me. You need that kind of drive and fortitude to be successful.
Amen. I'm going to go back over this way.
But and you got to have talent, excuse me.
My name is
Hi.
Anya, and I was wondering if you were ever intimidated by more schooled guitar players in your career, and how did you deal with that?
Intimidated? No, I've never been intimidated by any guitar player. Which brings up a story. I was in Sweden, and I was doing the biggest television show in Sweden with it was one of those. It was like the Johnny Carson show of Sweden, and it was all musical guests. And I'm walking down the hallway with the producer, and he says to me, "Ace, you a little nervous?" And I looked at him. I said, "I don't get nervous. I make other people nervous." And I've never been intimidated by anybody really. You know, maybe when I was a teenager, but you know, not once I became a professional musician. No. But thanks for the question. Good question. You don't have to clap for that one.
Hey Ace, thanks for the years of music. My name's Chris. If you look back in your time with Kiss, what would you feel is one of the things you're most proud of? If you look back at that time.
Probably, you know, growing up in New York City, doing 3 nights at Madison Square Garden. That was one of the pinnacles, you know. And the second thing was probably the show we did at Tiger Stadium for the reunion tour. Opening night, we had sold out Tiger Stadium in a record time of 48 minutes. And but I'll tell you about that night. You know, we're all wearing old costumes, obviously redone, and we're wearing the same makeup. And like halfway through the show, I just had this amazing feeling of deja vu. That are we in the 90s or am I back in the 70s? Because everything looked the same. And but then I kind of came back and said, "Oh, it's a reunion tour." But thank you for that question.
Hi, my name is Edwin. My dad introduced me to Kiss when I was 9 years old. If there was a bio movie of Kiss, who would you want to play you? And I have Detroit Rock City with me.
I'm trying to get Scorsese to do a film of my life.
Please let that happen. I think Scorsese will make a great job of making the movie.
Well, I mean, I could do the tail end of the film, but that. I'm looking. Rachel was saying there's this one actor that looks a lot like me when I was in my 20s. So, you know.
Ooh.
But, you know, I'm not going to start looking for actors until, you know, the deal is signed and delivered, and, you know, then we'll start casting it. But, you know, I mean, out of the 4 guys in Kiss, my life is probably the most interesting.
I would say your book was the most interesting.
Well, that was just scraping the surface. I'm working on No Regrets, too.
Yeah.
That's going to be even better. But, you know, it's going to be fun. You know, I don't understand Paul's book, you know? He's crying about his ear, and he's crying about... He even threw Gene under the bus. I mean, what's that about?
Well,
and
he got to go last. That was the thing, is he got to read the other 3 books, and then...
He really taught Peter a new asshole. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I mean, Peter's book isn't very nice.
He was easier on me than I thought he was going to be, and I don't know why. Maybe he likes me. But yeah, I mean, you know, the next book I'm going to write is going to be a fun book. I want it to be entertaining. I don't want any negativity in it. I want it to be just a fun rock and roll book that's easy reading.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, rock and roll, man.
Go this way.
Hi, Ace. My name is Mike, and thank you. We're looking forward to hearing the new Spaceman record. I wanted to ask you about one of your pre-Kiss bands, Malimo. Are there any plans to ever release any of those recordings?
That was the band, right? You guys did some stuff for RCA. Is that right? Is there some
You
major?
talking
label?
about Malimo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was actually the first time I was in a professional studio, and we tracked about 4 or 5 songs in the same studio where Frank Sinatra recorded. So it was a rush. Here I am in the RCA studios. I mean, it was a lot bigger than the studio we recorded the first Kiss album in. But yeah, that group never took off. You know, it was kind of a Jefferson Airplane kind of takeoff band.
Sure.
You know, with a girl singer and a guy singer. And the songs were okay, but they weren't great. Didn't somebody find an old acetate of the songs and they're floating around on eBay? Or you know, I don't really care. I probably have an old reel-to-reel tape of the songs. And I think I have a reel-to-reel of us performing at the... what's that theater in New York that everybody...
Oh, the Fillmore? The Fillmore?
Fillmore, yeah. There's one in California and there's one in the Village. Yeah, I think I have an old tape of a reel-to-reel tape of Malimo performing there. But you know, I mean, the group was like an experiment, and I got my, you know, what's the term? Fingers, toes wet?
Feet wet.
I got my feet wet, you know, being in a recording studio for the first time, a real professional studio. So you know, we got the record deal with Kiss. At least I wasn't completely, you know, not aware of what was happening. And, you know, with the boards and stuff and recording process.
All right, so I've been trying to figure out a question that maybe nobody's asked you before. Now, you've worked with one of my favorite producers, Eddie Kramer. You've done tons of work with him over the years. You've worked in, like, mansions. You've worked in theaters with him. And he's well known among music aficionados for doing some crazy shit in the studio. So recording, I don't know, drums in an elevator shaft or putting amplifier cabinets like in a closet and then blasting them up to 11, you know. What's the craziest recording technique that you can recall ever using or somebody's used to get the best out of you?
Well, I invented, I came up with this idea, and everybody's familiar with the song, Fractured Mirror.
Yeah.
When I recorded that song, to get that bell, you notice at the end of the song, there's a, you know, the picking part that I'm doing kind of rings out and has like a bell sound. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, at the beginning as well.
Okay, you know how I got that sound? I used the double neck, and I played the figure on the neck that was off, but I put the pickups on the opposite neck and turned the volume up to 10. So that's how I got that ringy sound, because it was resonating through the wood. So, you know, I always thought outside the box, you know. I still do to this day, you know. People go, well, when you record in the studio, whatever, I use 20 different guitars, and I try experimental miking techniques and special effects here and there. But, you know, usually I record things, you know, without effects, and then I add them later on. But you know, there's nothing like natural ambience. I don't care what anybody says. You know, like think about Robert Palmer's, what was this big hit? Addicted to Love. You know, that was recorded at the power station, and the ambience on that snare is a staircase, and they pumped the snare drum and re-recorded it in the back staircase of the building, because I used to record there, and I knew the guys that owned the studio. And that's natural ambience. You can't beat it.
Was that why they named that band the Power Station? Because they recorded the band Robert Palmer had with a couple of guys from Duran Duran. Remember that band? They did Get It On, Bang a Gong. They did a cover of that. Anyway.
I don't know.
Pardon my tangent.
I mean, the guys that owned it was Bon Jovi's uncle. What was his name? He actually took me flying in his plane. This guy's crazy.
Bon Jovi's uncle or Bon Jovi? The uncle?
Bon Jovi's older uncle
Uh-huh.
was one of the owners of the power station. He's also had a twin-engine Cessna, and he took me down to Cape May, and we flew back. And I said, well, when we get to Atlantic City, can we like fly lower than the casinos? You know? He said, sure. So we're probably only 75 feet off the ground, but all of a sudden all these seagulls start flying up. I go, well, what happens if one of the seagulls hit the engine or something? He goes, we'll probably crash. So I said, let's go up. But he was one of the partners. He was partners with another guy whose name escapes me, who passed away. And they owned the power station. I used to get free time there. And great studio.
And just so no one thinks I'm crazy, he was saying Robert Palmer recorded at the Power Station studio. Robert Palmer sang for a band called Power Station, kids. Thank you. Let's go over here.
Hi, Robin. Love you, Ace. So I'm a huge fan of Kiss. Loved you my whole life, to the point where the license plate on my car spells out Kiss Army. And so I know Kiss fans can sometimes be a handful, and so I was wondering if you have any stories, maybe the funniest, craziest thing a fan said or done to get your attention.
The craziest thing? God. I mean, Kiss fans are the craziest fans in the world. They used to come up to me and they go, do you have sex with the makeup on or off? Yeah. But I don't know. There were, girls used to crawl in the windows. Our fans are nuts. But, they're probably not that much crazier than I am, so I get along with them. We're okay. Everything's good.
She mentioned the Kiss Army. Is it true the Kiss Army started in Indiana?
Yes, it is.
I'm from Indiana
and
originally.
the name of the gentleman who started it escapes me, but you probably know his name, right? Bill something. Yeah. Yeah, he was the one that started the Kiss Army, and Paul and Jean, got involved with him. And
he did the convention in Indiana.
Yeah.
We're going to go this way.
Kistory.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Kiss fans and all that, because for me, Kiss's music has always been there for me. There was a dark time in my life, and I just want to say Kiss's music saved my life because of it. I don't want to go into details, but I just want to say thank you for your music and Kiss's music, just for all that. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Happening Harry. I'm a friend of Mikey, Supa's, and Frankie's. So 20 years ago in Chicago, you asked me to shoot some pool with you.
I did?
Yeah, Carl.
With you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carl and I were out with you.
Okay.
And
I was drinking.
Yeah, but this is...
And you expect me to remember this.
You leaned over and you said, Harry, if anybody asks, it's cranberry juice. That's what you said.
Well, you know what I used to do? I used to take seltzer and pour High-Gidant cough syrup into it. And it looked like cranberry juice, but it was really cough syrup.
My question is you asked me to shoot pool with you, but you...
I have no memory of that, but if you say it, I believe you.
And you said for $100 a game.
That sounds right. I didn't like paying for $5 or $10.
I beat you several times. You got really pissed off.
And?
Have you ever brushed up on your game?
I actually just bought a brand new pool table, and it's being delivered October 3rd to my new home.
Is it up to $200 a game?
Oh, I don't know.
I thought he was going to say you owe him money. I got nervous.
He never paid me.
I
That's
didn't?
Okay. No.
Well, if I had money on me, I'd give it to you.
Hey. I don't want to get involved with
I don't like to welch on my bets.
I don't want to get involved with Peter. That's all.
Yeah. Well, maybe you have something to sign or something. We can take a picture together after we get off the stage. I'd be more than happy to do that for you, sir. Okay.
Ace.
Hi.
What's going on, man? My name is
Interesting
Juan.
shirt.
Yeah, I think that's Tommy Thayer.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't say that.
He said ask him anything.
I was at the Rockin' with the Boys video shoot in Detroit. I flew in from Detroit to be here today to see you, man. And I just want to know, when is the Rockin' with the Boys video coming out?
I have no idea because I'm not happy with it.
Oh.
And we're on the third edit. The problem with that video shoot was that, number one, there was no backdrop, and number
was
two,
real weird.
there wasn't enough lighting.
Yeah. I noticed it was real weird. The way they had the crowd set up at that event. Like there was a spot where the stage just dropped off and there was nobody. So I don't know how that would have worked.
The whole thing was weird. Somebody dropped the ball, and there wasn't enough lighting. There wasn't enough. The stage didn't look great at all. And I don't like putting out substandard product. Sure. So I've been arguing with the record company because they keep sending me edits, and it still looks like shit. But it's probably going to come out anyway, and...
well, I still hope I made it in it, regardless of however it looks.
Oh, are you in the crowd? Yeah. Well, I told the editor to put more crowd scenes in. So you're probably going to be in it if it ever gets released.
Thank you. God bless you.
Right on.
Going this way.
Hey,
Hi.
okay. I've been listening to your solo albums since when I was 13 years old, and that's why I picked up the guitar after I heard the album. And then my question is, which guitar did you use to record the Frehley's Comet album in 1987?
Whatever's laying around. I have, back then I had about 100 guitars.
Hey, Ace. There was a Kiss meets Scooby-Doo crossover?
I saw that.
Did you see it? I have not seen it, but I've seen a clip, and I really want to know what your thoughts are. Or is it as good as Phantom in the Park?
Not even close.
Oh. Have a great day.
But I'm wondering where my check is really what I'm wondering. Because I still do get checks for merchandise and stuff like that.
Yeah, Kiss Meets Scooby-Doo is missing two very important things. Let's go over here.
How you doing, Ace? Izzy Presley from Monsters of Rock Radio and ACK, a tribute to Ace Frehley.
Thank you.
I have a tribute band. What can I say? All the guitars that you've had and sold, is there any guitars that you were really hard to part ways with?
No, because when somebody offers you $75,000 and you can go out and buy a Mercedes, it's not that hard parting, but when you got another 60. So, Gibson, I was on tour, I was on vacation. I came back, and Gibson released the 59 Les Paul, which was a copy of my original 59 I used on the 78 solo album. I get to the house and there's 12 Les Pauls waiting for me. It was like Christmas.
Okay, my name is Sam.
Hi.
So in the early 90s, I saw Kiss. I never saw them without makeup. I saw them with you early on. I saw them without makeup do this one-off show, and they did almost all Kiss Alive stuff. And then right around that time, I saw you and Peter at the House of Blues. Both of your bands played. So my question is, prior to Unplugged, was there any lawyers or managers or back channeling going on before that reunion on Unplugged? Was there conversations about a reunion before the Unplugged? Did you ever hear anything?
Oh, before Unplugged?
Yeah, like a few years before or something around that time.
I think that was me and Peter did a thing called the Bad Boys Tour.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we just thought it was a good idea to get out there and do something together. The fans enjoyed it. And I guess Paul and Gene took notice. Next thing you know, we're doing Unplugged. Next thing you're doing a reunion tour,
But they never you didn't hear anything 2 years before, maybe it might happen or anything like that, or?
No.
Okay.
No, they spring stuff on me like last minute. Like if I'm going to be in the reunion tour, I'll probably get a call like a week before it happens. Hey, you want to do it? Yeah, you know. And I'll say, talk to my attorney.
Peter Paterno.
Paterno, yeah.
Hi, Lewis. I have a question for my friend from San Francisco. He's named Jonathan Fenno. I don't know if you know him. But he told me to ask you if you remember the first couple of songs you wrote and what were the titles.
You guys should know that. It's documented in history.
Okay. That's all.
One of the first songs, I guess, was Shock Me. Love Theme from Kiss was actually mostly me. But, you know, on Love Theme from Kiss, it says all four of us wrote it. But pretty much that was my riff. And then Gene came up with, like, the middle part. Boom, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's Gene. And, you know, by the way, Gene also wrote the bridge in Cold Gin and never took credit for it. He goes, don't worry about it. You wrote the song, you know. And sometimes, you know, Gene would write a song and I'd change a part. And I would say, I don't want any credit. It's your song, you know. It was like that, you know. We were like brothers. And then all of a sudden we became multimillionaires. And then, like, everybody started going their own way. You know, Gene started dating Cher and Diana Ross. You know, Paul's out here doing something. You know, Peter's doing this. You know, I'm crashing race cars and getting loaded. So, I mean, you know, it was like too much too soon. It happens, especially in the entertainment business. But thank God I'm still here. God, I can't believe it.
Thank you.
You know, I think, I'll be honest with you, I think God kept me alive for a reason. Because you know what happens to me all the time is when I do autograph signings, you know, at least 2 or 3 or 4 of the people that are there, you know, they come up to me and whisper in my ear and they go, you know, I've been sober now 2 or 3 years. And I said, that's great. He goes, I got sober because of you. And, you know, that makes my day when I'm saving people's lives. You know, so I think that's why God kept me alive, you know. I used to be a bad influence on kids because they, you know, people would hear, Ace just crashed his car, I'm going to go out and crash mine, you know. But, you know, it's completely done 360, you know, and now hopefully I'm a good influence on, you know, Kiss fans, and I really appreciate all that stuff. You know, guys getting sober because of me, that's wonderful.
And now it really is cranberry juice. Really is cranberry juice. I think you had some earlier.
Yeah.
I saw you with it. We're gonna speed these up.
Hey, my name is Randy. I'm just really curious. After you guys finished recording the solo albums, and the first time that the 4 of you ever got together again, did you guys ever like sit down and like actually give each other opinions about what you guys thought of each other's solo albums, what you liked about them, what you didn't like about them? Were you guys honest with each other?
Great question.
Nobody, they didn't want to talk about it because they knew mine was the best and they didn't want to admit it. So that meeting never took place, unfortunately.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and
Hi, Sarah.
I think you're awesome.
Thank you.
And my question is, what, in your opinion, is the best album you've ever recorded?
I have no idea. I mean, probably the first solo album, you know, is the most special album I've recorded because it's withstood the test of time. You know, 40 years later, it's still a great record. So that's probably my favorite record. Thank you. And the cover's bitchin'. You know,
I just got a message from the record label that says Spaceman is your best record.
Oh, well, that'll be up for them to decide, you know, after it comes out.
Hi, Ace. I'm super excited for the new album, and
Hi.
it's great to see you in person and stuff. I have
Thank
a question. What's your favorite costume you ever had in Kiss?
Probably the Destroyer one, because it was the most comfortable.
Sweet. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Ace. I'm John from Orange County, and my first concert was Kiss at Anaheim Stadium, 76, so I'm a bit older.
Wow, you got a few years on you.
Well, yeah. Speaking of years, you got congratulations on your 12. in general terms, how did you do it?
Well, I tried getting sober, years before that. Like I put a year together or a year and a half, and then I'd go out on tour, and I'm on a tour bus, and the other guys on the tour bus are drinking and smoking pot. So, within a week I relapsed, and, finally, I sat down with my sponsor, and he goes, look, if you're serious about getting sober, you can't hang out with people that get high. So I had to change my friends and, fire some people. And, on September 15th, 2006, something special happened. A miracle happened. My daughter gave me a call. She was living in Florida at the time. And she gave me, they all talk about alcoholics having that moment of clarity. Well, I had relapsed with my sponsor, by the way. Me and my sponsor decided to get drunk together. So it was crazy. But after about 2 months, I started going down that path. I hadn't, hit the bottom yet or picked up the cocaine yet, but I was drinking. So my daughter calls me up from Florida, and she goes, Dad, I'm not hearing good things about you, because she was sober at the time. And I looked in the mirror, and I just said, shit, she's right. And that evening, I called my sponsor, Jimi Genta, and he took me to an AA meeting, and I've been sober ever since.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Hey, I'm Zachary Lyle Friday. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. I was wondering, you talk about how much you listened to Hendrix growing up and Led Zeppelin. Did you have a specific vision that you wanted to maybe be a solo artist or in a band, or just play music in general?
I knew as a teenager that I wanted to be in a theatrical rock group because I was greatly influenced by Alice Cooper and The Who, And as much as I love the Cream and Jeff Beck, they just stood there. But when you went to a Who concert, you got Townsend throwing his guitar up in the air, he's smashing it into his amps, Keith Moon's wrecking his drums, I found that fascinating and a lot of fun. And, then I went to go see Alice Cooper a couple of times, and, I was just blown away by the show, and even though he didn't really wear a lot of makeup, it was pretty much just the mascara and stuff. But the production was amazing. The $1 Billion Baby Tour at Madison Square Garden, me and Paul Stanley went there, and we snuck down to the front of the stage because we couldn't afford the tickets, and we were just like mesmerized. And we all kind of knew, the four of us knew that we wanted to do a theatrical rock group. We were all talented, we all could write songs, we all could sing, and but we wanted to take it a step further than Alice Cooper did or any other band that we've had seen. So that's how KISS happened.
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I was wondering, is it true that you would accept $6,000 to be somebody's best man at their wedding?
I got a call from, I don't know if you know who Keith LaRue is. He's like Paul and Gene's assistant. He's been working for KISS forever, and he's been helping me out, putting together events. He was the one that organized the KISS Expo in Indianapolis, which was a lot of fun. He called me up like a week ago and said, "You want to do that?" And my initial reaction was no, but then, I was talking to Rachel about it, and she goes, "That might be fun. Helping somebody get married and stuff, especially if they're KISS. I mean, obviously they're going to be KISS fans if they want me to be involved in their wedding." So, look, you got KISS caskets, which I'm not too crazy about, but yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think I'm going to have a gas doing it. If somebody decides they want me to walk them down the aisle,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a whole thing. It's not just best man.
It's
There's like a
you
whole
know,
bunch-
it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, I had second thoughts when, for a second, and then I said, Keith goes, Ace, it could be a lot of fun, and you could make a lot of money. So I said, well, all right, we'll try it, see what happens.
Well, Ace, thank you so much for being here. I seriously can't thank you enough. It's a dream come true, I think, for everybody here.
Thank you so much. Great audience. Thank you. Thank you all.